right. In the past year, the U.S. government spent nearly... Oh, this is a good one for you. The past year, the U.S. government spent nearly $1 trillion more than it raised. But some argue that urgent policy initiatives should take priority over limiting the national debt. The president should or should not commit to stabilizing or lowering the national debts.
I think he should.
Yeah, so it's no surprise there. 15 out of 20. Should the U.S. consider adding more justices to the Supreme Court? Should the president consider adding more justices to the Supreme Court to change its ideological balance?
No, I don't think it's broke, so don't fix it.
Okay, so, yeah, that's interesting. We saw something like that with Buttigieg. He called for that early on in his campaign, which he suddenly dropped after he started talking to the Wall Street donors who were a little... They thought it was a little too noisy for someone who they wanted to support, so he quietly dropped that from his stump speech. But
what's the rationale? Just because, I mean, if you gave Trump more seats, he'd put in more...
Yeah.
What's that society that he...
Federalist Society. Yeah, so pretty much the rationale is like they've called for the next Democratic president to increase the number of Supreme Court justices. The calls to do so grew after the Senate successfully blocked Merrick Garland's nomination to the bench in 2016 under President Barack Obama. President Franklin Roosevelt planned to pack the high court after its conservative members struck down parts of his popular legislative accomplishments, such as minimum wage increases. Roosevelt backed down from the plan after the court reversed its ruling on the minimum wage issue. So again, I mean, I think there's ways to get stuff done without packing the court, and that's called, I think what Bernie Sanders has a great plan to do is organizing around your base, your coalition that got you in office, and bringing that to the home states of senators or representatives who may not agree with you. Which is like, for example, say Medicare for All vote comes, and Joe Manchin in West Virginia is a holdout vote, or, I don't know, Doug Jones of Alabama is a holdout vote. You get people packing a massive arena in West Virginia, and Bernie Sanders leading and say, Joe, let me tell you, we need Medicare for all. And if you don't do that, if you don't vote for it, West Virginia may need another senator. Like that kind of stuff is like something that I don't think any other president since FDR has ever considered doing, and something that you really need to like get important stuff done. And that's why people like there's not been a president quite like that, especially on the Democratic side.
Well, he's shown how he's been able to use that effectively, right? The same technique throughout his career.
Oh, Bernie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
Mobilizing.
So, yeah, so Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Warren, and Yang are open to it, according to this article. Nuclear power is the nation's largest carbon-neutral energy source, but high-profile accidents. And the question of where to store nuclear waste complicated its future. What should the government do with nuclear power? Expand it, pause the expansion of it, or phase it out?
Phase it out.
Why do you say that?
Oh, I'm just nervous about one of them exploding.
Yeah.
And the cost of that is just so enormous.
Yeah, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima, those are all major accidents that we have seen. Yeah, and I think that just kind of speaks to the broader thing about the Green New Deal and all that stuff about like what direction you want to take climate and all that. So college, the government should make 4 years of college free, debt-free, or affordable for all families, including the wealthy.
Affordable, I would say.
Affordable, okay. It doesn't look like we're getting any clear winners here in this at this point. But I mean, I think for college it's really interesting one because like as we were talking about before, again we had a big discussion about this before. It's like you gotta at least like what when you say affordable, like what do you have in mind there? I'm curious to know.
I was just taking the option that seemed the most appealing. I think universities have a big problem in that it really it just keeps the costs keep going up, and the jobs that it teaches gets you ready for just can't pay it. So unless if anybody
and there's limited jobs that are available from these university degrees in the first place.
If anybody doesn't have enough money, it's hard to imagine them having it be affordable, without taking on a lot of debt.
So you're thinking about some sort of subsidization program here?
That makes a lot more sense, or some ability to make colleges use their endowments to help lower the costs.
Like if you got someone like Harvard where they could have people for free for how many years and still be like enormously pay for everyone's there's tuition for how many years and still be enormously successful financially. It's like you get to a point where it's like, come on.
I think definitely should have free school. I mean, certain schools are free. I don't think you pay to go to like City University of New York or State University. I think those are free. So there's kind of free-ish options. They're affordable options.
For the state universities, it's cheaper for people in state, but not entirely free, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, you should have an option for someone where maybe they don't go to the school they exactly want, but that they can still get a degree and be able to have a reasonable debt load when they get out. Yeah.
All right. So with respect to student debt, Americans owe $1.6 trillion in student debt, with 2 in 10 behind on their payments, according to the Federal Reserve. Student loan debt should be canceled for everyone, canceled for lower incomes, reduced but not outright canceled, or left alone. Tough one here.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's sort of tough to use these.
Just had a little bit of a spillage there. Yeah, so about the debt, it's a very, very tough issue, obviously, because like you wanna help people out, and they're just trying to get an education, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's really no limit to what you'd want to do for people, but it's just practical. The thing that you can't mess with is our strong economy, our dollar as reserve currency. All that stuff gives America so much power.
Mm-hmm. And so you're thinking cancel for everyone, cancel for low incomes, reduced, but not outright canceled or left alone.
I guess I would have to say reduced.
But not outright canceled? Okay.
Yes, something that, just because that seems the most affordable and, may not do everything, but the most helpful.
All right, so for electoral politics, should the U.S. consider eliminating the Electoral College system in favor of the popular vote?
No.
Why do you say that?
Again, it's just because it seems to have worked, and by worked I mean not
as of recent, really.
Not disenfranchise certain parts of the country.
But I mean, again, so this is kind of thing where it's
that's the whole purpose of it, is that large areas don't overwhelm small areas in terms of representation.
But if we look at the battleground states, the election is decided in those states either way. Like, we in New York don't get much of a voice in the process either way. And I mean, who would have a voice because states don't vote necessarily completely monolithically, right?
Ideally,
I guess,
no.
So, like, who would have a voice in the popular vote system more? That would be...
Who would have a vote?
Who would have more of a voice? I mean, it would be more one man, one vote. It would be more democratic.
Well, it is that, and then you vote for... You get delegates the more votes you get, the more delegates you get. I mean,
not necessarily. We saw we saw with Clinton, Gore, And who else?
Well, it's just because different states get more delegates than they have votes, right? Isn't that the whole issue where there would have been enough delegates in New York to elect Clinton 10 times over, but it doesn't get you any more delegates than the numbers in
I think it's just from 2016 to 2000. Yeah, but I think it's just the more just saying why I support it. I think it's just the more it really gets into our. I think it better achieves our ideal of the one man, one vote kind of system. But so let's see, should not consider eliminating the Electoral College.
It's sort of a weakly worded question because I have no problem with them considering it, but I just don't think you should do it. So
yeah, but I mean, if you're considering it, I mean, it leans more towards doing it. But right. I mean, what's the point of considering it if you think they shouldn't really do it?
Right.
All right. So free trade. Should the U.S. consider joining a new free trade pact?
Sure.
With China.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So let's actually make this up. Let's see who agrees with you the least. Who do you think that's going to be?
Who agrees with me the least?
Mm-hmm.
Bernie?
You'd be correct. He's agreed with you on 3 of the 20 questions. Who do you think agrees with you the second least?
Warren?
You'd be correct about that too. Number 6 questions you had in common. Steyer, you had 8 questions in common with. 10 questions you had in common with Tulsi Gabbard, as well as Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg. The candidates who dropped out, you had 13 questions in common with Bennett, Patrick, and Yang. Who do you think you had 14 questions in common with?
Oh, I hope it's not Bloomberg.
It is Bloomberg. It's Michael Bloomberg, and that leaves one more person you had 15 questions in common with, and it is, according to this Washington Post questionnaire that we filled out, your candidate for the 2020 election, it is Joe Biden. He's kind of cringing as he makes that face. So yeah, it looks like you just got to support Joe Biden now. Yeah. Where does this questionnaire, before we let you go here, where does this questionnaire leave you in terms of how closer you are to figuring out what candidate you're going to support?
Well, I figure by the time the New York primary rolls around, Biden will be gone.
That's a fair assumption.
I'm hoping Bloomberg will be gone.
What makes you so anti-Bloomberg?
It's just an intangible, and I worry about his megalomaniacal tendencies. Meaning,
trying to buy it.
That, and just when he was governor of New York, the whole 3-term thing.
Oh yeah.
That
man
sort of
come for the 3 terms there.
Yeah, that sat badly with me.
Okay, so
so I'm not too keen on him, and then, but so I'd really have to vote for Bloomberg, Buttigieg, or I don't know, it'd be interesting to see who's still around.
I don't know. Buttigieg will be around. If Bloomberg I think Bloomberg probably has a better chance of being around than Buttigieg does of that.
But if Bernie's down, I'm going to be voting for him.
Right. All right. Any blue would do for you?
Indeed.
All right. That is my father, Nicholas Walsh. Thank you so much for coming on the show
bet.
Today.
You bet.
All right. Really appreciate it. That's it for us today. We're back with our regularly scheduled programming. So see you then. You know when the episodes come out, everybody.